Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human Gina. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate your presence always, whether you're new or you're coming back for another episode. I appreciate that very much. Um, this is another one of those days that I was compelled to the mic, and this is happening a little more frequently than well, I guess I had nothing to expect because this is all new territory for me. One of the things that my soul wants to do in this world, and it's funny how it's unfolding in reality, is to burn new trails or to trailblaze and to live a life of style is the way that it's put in the Gene Keys. And I haven't talked about the Gene Keys in a while, but I want to mention it again today. It was, it's not anymore. It was a bridge for me. It was a bridge for me to go from the darkest me to the illuminated me. It really helped me, and served as kind of like a stepping stones to get across that dark place that you have to travel over or through, to really understand yourself, and to get through your dark night or to deal with your shadow side. And in the Gene Keys, it identifies for you specifically based on your birth date, time, place, and of course the planetary alignments at that time and before you're born, kind of imprint you with your soul's purpose. And it's really interesting to research. It's something I've really learned a lot about through this process. But the planetary alignment is, or are the planetary alignments are indicators of what you'll deal with in this lifetime, and it really brings to your awareness how intentional the universe is, and how there are no accidents, and how we are here for a specified purpose. And if we can embrace that through understanding, our experience is much better. Of course, it's you know if you know where you're going, it's easy to intentionally go there instead of worrying and struggling and fighting. And what I learned about myself, or my soul's journey through this incarnation, is that she wanted to learn specific karmic lessons, which I've outlined pretty vividly through these podcast episodes. The main one being, to no longer identify as a victim. So I attracted these relationships to me that put me in the role of a victim, and if I identified as a victim and I embraced that identification, I suffered, and then I didn't learn. And then by not learning, I invited these situationships back into my life as another opportunity to learn. So, and they keep coming until you finally acknowledge what's happening. And this is what I mean about understanding why we're here. If you understand why your soul's here by way of whatever method you are you're embracing, you get that that information that allows you to let go and surrender to what's happening. And that's really what self-awareness or spiritual awakening is. It's really a surrender to your life's purpose and plan, your soul's plan. And we're not meant to know all of it, of course, but we do get privy or privilege to get a good size peek at it if we know where to look. So this is one thing this is the method that I use, or the vehicle I use, to get me across that dark place, which is where we have to travel through in order to get to our illuminated or our aware self. So it's basically just coming from blind darkness where we're living our life kind of instinctively, and a lot of those instincts are animal because we don't really understand the breadth of our mental abilities when they're connected, when our mental self is connected to our spiritual self or our energetic self. We don't understand how broad our options become. But when we're in that darkness or blindness in that darkness, we don't know how to get to the light. And when we have an event or a series of events or the opportunity through some intentional method to awaken, we are illuminated, which is very literal. Our world gets illuminated, ourselves get illuminated, and we are able to see, quote unquote, for the first time, who we are, what we are, and why we're here. And really what the purpose of all of everything is. And we never know everything for sure, but I think that's the point. We are not to go into this with a scientific intention of figuring out and then connecting the dots. It is a more of an energetic knowing. It is something that you intuitively know when your intuition gets activated. And then you're given this wisdom because you're now capable of handling it or managing it or even sharing it. So, when you know your soul's purpose, and one thing I understand about my soul is not only the karmic lessons, which were to free me from the karmic debt that I brought into this world and that I've more than likely brought into several lifetimes, maybe not all on this planet, but that my soul used these incarnations or uses these incarnations to learn and evolve and get to a point in one of these lifetimes where she can overcome and learn these lessons and graduate human school. So I believe from what I've gleaned and what I know in my body and what I've been told by my spirit team is that this is the lifetime that my soul wants to graduate from human school. And she wants to enjoy the blessings of a clear and open heart. So, I found this out in many different ways. And one of them is through the gene keys and the different books in the Golden Path series. And what they tell you is be based on your energetic makeup, which is determined by the planetary alignments, which is the geometry of the universe. We are imprinted with a specific or a certain uh, journey when in whatever incarnation we happen to be in, and there are specific things that our soul wants to accomplish. And I talked about the karmic lessons that my soul wanted to learn, and I've done a good amount of that heavy lifting. But there's always more to learn, always. I mean, we're here to learn. We don't ever sit back with grapes and a glass of wine, or maybe that's redundant, whatever, in a glass of wine, and we just marvel at how amazing we are and how we don't need to learn anything else, and we can go on about we can live the rest of this life in ignorance. Ignorant bliss is probably a better way to put that. It doesn't work that way. We are here to learn, and I will continually learn through the rest of this incarnation. And I think the message that I've received is that my big lessons are over. So my conducting myself as a human and being aware now of my behavior and aware of the impact of what I've been through has been on me and what it's activated within me and what lessons I needed to learn from that. I got that part pretty good. What's still left, though, are a lot of little things, or maybe bigger things, I'm not sure, that I have still left to learn. And one of the things in the gene keys and in the description of my energy is, and my purpose here, or the things that my soul brought into this incarnation, is I am meant to live a life of style. And I really had to contemplate what this meant, because I'm like, well, what does that mean? Is that I have to be a fashionista? Am I supposed to be fashionable? I mean, style can mean so many different things, but style meant or means to me living in a way that is unusual or unique or not common. So I am meant to live outside of the boundaries of tradition and of cultural um, norms and of constructs and institutions. So, and this has been evident throughout my whole life. I've never been a religious person. I've actually had an adversity to religion most of the time. I mean, it's to the point where I feel uncomfortable in church. I think I've mentioned that before. And religion to me was always I always thought of religion as starting with a pure intention. but that got corrupted by fear. And I think that's the best way I can put it. And so fear causes us to do things to protect a belief. And usually that belief is something having to do with our insecurities or our weaknesses or what we perceive as our insecurities and weaknesses. So to me, religion has been twisted into something that serves the insecurities of man. I think I've actually put it that way before. So because of that, I've had a mistrust of its intention. So although the Bible, I'm sure, is an account of real things, and I believe that Jesus was a savior uh, uh, i- in his own right, but I believe that Jesus is an avatar, and an avatar is an elevated being who comes to earth with a specific purpose. And we all are this person. We all come to earth with a specified purpose. Some of them are elevated, however. These are older souls, I imagine. They've been through a lot more than maybe us younger souls. And they have learned and become sages. And these sages choose to come back to earth to serve as an example of enlightenment. So there are many, many of them in our earthly plane now, and I always do this. I forget names, but Eckhart Tolle or Tolle, Satguru. Uh, there's Mark Singer. All of these authors of these enlightenment books or these series or these teachings are what I've come to understand are avatars. They are elevated beings, and I'm going to use the word alien because I want you to get more comfortable with it. Because, like I said before, we are all aliens in our own right. None of us are from Earth. We are all from some other place. And Earth is a place we come to learn. So, as an as a an enlightened being, and this being may be someone had who gained their wisdom from a whole nother place. They don't have to be humans. They can be aliens of all sorts. But these elevated, enlightened, advanced beings come to earth and they spread their messages of love. And I believe Jesus was an avatar. So he is historically remembered as the Son of God, and God is remembered as the creator of life. And that you know that belongs to whomever identifies with that. But I believe that the universe designs our perceptions with images and memories of what comfort us. So to the person next to me, God and Jesus may be their ideal. For me, the universe as a whole is my God. And that includes every living thing because we all share the same energy. We share the same consciousness. We are all part of the same um, thing. I mean, I don't know what to call it. It's so I believe there is something beyond even the most wisest aliens understanding that created the world and the universe and everything. And I refer to that and have learned to refer to that as the prime creator. So the prime creator is not God, or it is if that's your perception of it, that's fine. And Jesus is not the Son of God; he's an avatar. He is an elevator, advanced being that came to Earth to educate humanity. And in his effort to do that, he is memorialized as a savior or a martyr, and that became a guiding light for, I mean, through centuries. I mean, look at the impact of this story of Jesus. So although that the intention of this story and the documenting of this has been an incredibly important part of our understanding of God, quote unquote, it is it religion, I think, as an institution has had difficulty maintaining the purity, I think, that is needed to be a messenger of love. I don't know if that came across right or not. It doesn't matter. But what I mean is that it's it is uh, the purpose of the elevated being, or the avatars, to spread the message of love, and to living a life free from fear or ego, f- and insecurities. Because what we do is we use fear, or fear uses us, is probably more accurate, to construct an external life that keeps us safe. So we are thereby controlled by it to a large degree. And I'm getting to my point here in a minute, I promise. But one of the things my soul wants to do is live a life of style. So that means to live outside of the norms, and to so I went on this religious tirade, because one of the things I never believed in was religion, and not because I don't believe in God, quote unquote. I believe in the universe, and I look at it differently. Let's put it that way. I look at goodness and energetic life as the God energy, or I actually refer to it as the God body, and we're all a part of it. Nobody is excluded from it. And I think the fact that people understand, or they learn that there's exclusion in religion, meaning if you don't believe what I believe, or see things the same way that I do, or if I don't desecrate things that are bad, or if I sin or whatever. I don't know. I'm not really religiously articulate, but if I go through my life following the rules of the church, then I am godlike and you're not. So that division is what where I get lost, is where get off the train and go somewhere else. I mean, I think I've said this before too. If there is a Dead Sea Scroll, and it's, found buried in a tomb somewhere in Egypt, it's going to have one line on it. It's going to say, "Love each other." That's it. That's what we're here to do. And we obviously can't do that, because we have to learn, and then we are able to do that. So I'm not saying it's wrong or bad that we don't. It is what it is. We're here to learn to do that. So I've not followed these norms, because they never made any sense to me. I did, marriage is honestly another thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe later in life, but not being young, because youth is an adventure. And I won't go off on another tirade on this, but basically I feel like marriage can be self-limiting. And I'll leave it at that. I actually have an article about it on my blog, on my website. What's it entitled? Oh boy, I don't remember. I think it's a love perspective. There it is. It's called a love perspective, and it's all about my feelings about that, and my perception of marriage. So I won't go off on it here, but so marriage is an institution, religion is an institution, you know, um, cultural beliefs, that another kind of institutionalized thing that we adopt, and we, traditions is another one. I've never been much of a traditional person. Like, if, for example, I have not put up a Christmas tree in, I think, 10 years. I did it for my daughter when she was young, because she was delighted by it. But when she grew up and didn't really, honestly, I don't really see her at Christmas, because her family on her dad's side is humongous, and on my side is just me. Uh, you know, she doesn't spend the holidays with me, and that's my choice, because I don't want to take her away from her huge family on the other side. I see her plenty, and I guess I've just never worried that holidays were a time I needed to see my family, and I never felt that need, or that traditional drive. And so because of that, I can let go of things that don't serve me. So if the holidays are stressful, I don't do the holidays. It's, to me, it's a simple solution. I'm not driven by guilt. I'm not driven by tradition or the need to please other people. So in that regard, I've always been really good. So I think part of the reason I'm going on about this is my soul's purpose is not to live in a box. She wants to think outside the box, and she wants to have a life of style. So in order for me to do that, I have to blaze my own trails. So oftentimes I'm going down a road I've never gone before. And every time I get on this microphone, I think there's another one of those roads. And it's really very, very exciting. And at the same time, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because, I'm leaving a legacy here, and I really have to let go of how this legacy is perceived, and it's meant to find those who find value in it. I guess maybe that's all I need to know. So, my ability to do this without worry is another example of my soul's desire to not be, you know, painted into a box. And, it's always been easy for me to make change. I've always been easily left relationships, easily changed jobs, easily moved. I've moved several times in my life. It was only in my last relationship of nearly 25 years that I was stuck. And I said this before again, that was a karmic relationship. I understand I needed to be there. It was a soulmate relationship. It's a whole different dynamic. If I had left that relationship any earlier, I would not have learned the lessons I needed to learn. So that's why that was that. So, anyway, the reason I wanted to talk about all this is because of the lessons I'm still learning, and one that I think is going to be resonate probably pretty clearly with a lot of people, and that is fear. And I talked about fear as being a driver of humanity to create in the external world what protects our fears. So these are our identities, our false identities. These are our false behaviors. These are our false beliefs or our misguided beliefs, and all of the things that I alluded to prior to this in this podcast. So hopefully I cleared that enough where you see where I'm going. But what I'm dealing right now is a fear, and it's funny because I've kind of been skating for a while. I've been dealing with a lot of energetic. I don't want to call them issues, but anomalies because of the ascension symptoms that I've been experiencing. And they've left me sometimes, they leave me exhausted. Sometimes the term I've seen used is floaty, where you kind of feel like you're floating, your head is floating on your body, or you don't have a good, strong feeling of stability in your body. And that comes and goes pretty often. And I've had to deal with something recently that brought up a fear. And it's funny that I had to go through this process, and I've learned to trust my process, and I hope maybe it shortens someday. But basically, what happens if I go through something that requires contemplation and maybe it causes frustration, I have to go through like a 12 to 24-hour process to allow my emotions to swing from one side or one extreme to the other. So, and then land somewhere in the middle, and that's where I usually make my decision. So, this is funny how this came up, but I was um, invited recently to go on a trip to Florida with my daughter as a helping hand with a project that she has to do. And I immediately said yes, of course. And she said, "Well, we're going to be driving because of the circumstances." And I said, "That's preferable because flying to me is not really comfortable." And I don't know about you, but I've never really enjoyed flying, but I've always flown. I mean, I remember as a young person, I lived in South Florida. My family was from Ohio, and I would fly once a year as in my 20s and 30s, or 20s at least, to visit every year. And often I would just sleep on the plane. It was never an issue. However, as I was going through menopause, uh, that changed, and I began to have anxiety around flying. And in one occasion, I was on a flight, and if I mentioned this before, forgive me. I was on a flight to Las Vegas. My husband at the time and I took a weekend trip just to get away. As business owners, you work all the time, and even when you're home, you're working. There's always something to do. So whenever we really wanted a break, we would hop on a red eye or something and go somewhere else and sleep. And during this time, trips to Vegas were cheap. We didn't gamble really. He did a little. We just basically slept in, and we'd walked and ate, and that was all we did. And when I boarded this flight, in this menopausal state, which I, had suffered some anxiety to the point where I was taking ashwagandha root, which is a natural supplement, which helps lower the cortisol in your body, which is cortisol is manufactured in your body more aggressively when you're in menopause. I'm not sure why. But cortisol becomes an issue, and cortisol is a stress hormone. So you feel anxious when there's no reason to feel anxious. So I started to take ashwagandha root, and it seemed to mitigate that to a good degree. And I was fine most of the time. I actually had stopped taking it about a month before this trip, hopped on this plane, fully expecting to get to the other side without issue. And once I sat down in my seat, which was against the window, my husband at the time was on my left, and I started to feel stress. I started to feel this anxiety crawl up into my chest. And within a couple of minutes, I was in what I believed to be a panic attack. Now, I had never experienced a panic attack before this in my life, and I was in my 50s. I had no idea what was happening. I had an idea, but I'd never experienced it before, and it was nearly debilitating. And I'm sure you folks out there who have experienced this know what I mean. It was all I could do not to get up and run off that plane. And this feeling is advancing or increasing as the steward person was getting ready to close the doors on the plane. And I grabbed my husband's hand and I said, "Please do not let me get off this plane." I was terrified. And I sat there and I watched them close the door of the plane, and it was all I could do to not get up and rip that door off the hinges and dive off that plane. That's how far gone I was in this stress and anxiety. And, you can't, trouble breathing, you feel like you're dying. I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. So anyway, I was able to stay. I composed myself, and it took about 45 minutes though for me to really relax again. And it's like a 3-hour flight. So, by the time we got there, I was fine. I went directly to a vitamin store and got a bottle of ashwagandha root, and I took it for the 3 days we were there. And we went home and without issue. And but it's amazing how that panic attack or that feeling stays with you. So it's a few years later, and I have no need to fly, and my sister who lives in South Florida needs me to come to see her. Something has happened and she needs my help, and I have to fly because I'm not going to drive for 2 days. I need to go now. And uh so I went. And of course this was on the back at the back of my mind, and I think I took some sort of anti-dizzy medication, although I don't know how that was going to help. And I got on the plane against all of my impulses because all I can think about was this panic attack. And I got there fine, rented a car, stayed with her a week, went home with no issue. Now, flying is not comfortable, don't get me wrong, but I got through it. So here we are now, several years later, post menopause. And now it's post this energetic break, too, where I went through all these energetic issues. I call it an energetic break. It may be more commonly referred to as a nervous breakdown, but to me, an energetic break is more accurate because my energy broke and I couldn't breathe. I had to breathe deeply. I couldn't focus. I just like all of these issues, and I've talked about them many times. I won't go back into it. But on top of that, well, I recovered from that, but I've never really fully recovered my energy. So I'm 60 years old and I feel this a little bit of lack around my energy. I still have to be careful. I don't do well in crowds. I don't like loud noises. I feel more sensitive energetically. And I think that is just something that's happened. And on top of it, these symptoms, these ascension symptoms are, they come and go, but they can be disruptive. So I'm thinking about this flight. And of course, my first thought is, well, you're not taking that flight. There's no way. That tolerance that you had before menopause is gone now because menopause, I refer to it as taking your vitality. It really takes away that energetic vitality. And I don't want to give in to that, but it is the truth. You don't have the same stamina. You don't have the same resistance to things. You don't have the same nerve because you have this low grade kind of anxiousness in your body now. And I'm sure you can medicate it, and I'm sure many women do. I don't believe in that, not yet. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, you can't get on this plane because the chances, there's a chance it's not going to go well. So of course I went down this rabbit hole of worrying about this, and so I decided I wasn't going to go. I said I'm not gonna put my daughter through me having an issue, and then she has to take care of me. So I was going to tell her the next morning, I'm not going to go. Please get somebody else. And I really did not want to do that. So anyway, after a little bit more contemplation, I thought, let me look into taking a train. So I looked into Amtrak, and there's this long trip to get there. And I'm like, oh, should I just do this and avoid the plane? And, this is probably what I should do. And, it's better for her if I do that. And then I don't have to worry, and it's going to be better for everybody. And I'm just going to avoid the plane and go on a train. And sure, it's going to take a full day and a half longer to get there than it would be if I flew, but, it makes sense. And I felt pretty good about it all day yesterday. I'm like, this is a good solution. I can get what I need done without having to go through what I believe to be an unnecessary stress. So, so I convinced myself yesterday this is what I'm going to do. I talked to my daughter briefly. I said, let me think about it for a day and make sure, because it's not till March. And I said, I have to give my body time to tell me what it thinks about this, because I've learned to listen to my body. And I learned the difference between the voice of my intuition and the voice of my fear. And this is something I'm still learning. So I have to really think about this. So I had decided, I researched the trip. It's convenient. I can go. It's no problem. I can do that. I'll leave a day early. I'll meet you there. And I go to bed last night, and I don't have anxiety, which I did when I first thought about flying, because that feeling of anxiousness came right back in my chest, reminding me of that panic attack. And of course, that's imprinted, and we can't forget it. It's just such a vivid memory, like an energetic memory. Our body remembers it. I go to bed last night with this idea that I'm going to take this train and I'm going to avoid this barrier or this issue. And I lay down, and of course I heat up, which I do every night. I don't know if I'm postmenopausal yet or still menopausal, but I still heat up, not nearly as dramatically. It's only for a few seconds. So I rip the covers off of me and I wait for it to pass. And, 5 minutes go by, 10, 15, 30, and I'm looking at the clock going, what the hell is going on? This heat is still elevated in my body. I mean, my face felt hot. My hands were like I put them in an oven, and my whole body, I couldn't lay down. And if you try to sleep hot, I don't know if anybody's experienced that, but I have to be cool when I sleep because I can't sleep otherwise. Heat prevents me from falling asleep. So much so that I actually bought a system that is water cooled for my mattress. So during the summertime, when the air conditioning isn't enough and I can't turn it down to 50, I turn on this air cooled mattress cover, and I sleep at 63 degrees in the summer. Just to give you an idea of how bad heat is for sleeping, for me anyway. So I'm heated up, and it's half hour, 40 minutes, an hour. And I'm thinking, okay, what are you trying to tell me? This obviously is not just these little quick heat ups that go away and I can go to sleep. So I knew something else was going on. And I knew when I started to feel frustration coming into my body that something was wrong. And of course, I'm telling myself, okay, what is it that you need to hear? What is your body telling you? I'm trying to listen, and I'm getting really frustrated. And it's not something that happens to me much lately. I don't really get frustrated. I have a really good, I've become really good at seeing down the road and knowing that I just have to get there and just be patient. And you might have to do some contemplating. You might have to do some, you know, inner, search here to figure out where this is coming from. And I've gotten pretty good at this. I've actually kind of a pro. So I'm sitting up in bed because I can't lay down. It's too friggin' hot. And I'm thinking to myself, what is this? My brain is fervently trying to figure out what's going on. And I can feel this frustration come in, and that frustration turned into anger. And I'm angry at myself for being awake. And why are you suffering? That, we made this decision. I went around this problem. Why am I not going to sleep? I should feel good. This should be good. And I ended up in tears. I was crying and I'm thinking, okay, something's seriously wrong here, but I'm not going to figure it out tonight. I knew better. The crying exhausted me enough where I could lay down. And once I laid down for a few minutes, I was exhausted enough to fall asleep. By this time it's 5 a.m. And I had gone to bed at midnight. So that's how long I was dealing with this little issue. So, but I knew intuitively that if I just slept on it, by the time the morning came, I would have more clarity. And it's exactly what happened. It took a few minutes. I woke up still confused, and then I allowed myself to lay there and just kind of let the evening before kind of flow through my mind and my body. And I started to realize something. And this is what I wanted to share with you because it's very profound for me anyway. Um, what I needed to realize, well, the saying that popped into my mind in the morning, actually, it was so strong that I repeated it several times and got up and wrote it down. Although I don't believe I would have forgotten it. And the saying is, everything I do to mitigate my fear feeds my fear. Everything I do to mitigate my fear feeds my fear. And this started me thinking about the constructs, that the things that we create externally in our world to protect our insecurities, which of course comes out or manifests as fear. So my fear of flying caused me to literally go around it. And I'm saying literally because I was willing to take a train 39 hours to take a trip that would have taken around 5 hours flying between the two. I think we have to stop once to fly. But I was willing to go 39 hours on a train. By the way, I've never been on a train before either. And I'd have to go alone, more than likely, to avoid going on this plane where I may be perfectly fine. And honestly, though I had the panic attack, I was fine. Within a few minutes, the hard part was over. Within 45 minutes, I was completely fine. And I knew, during that 45 minutes that I was getting better and better and I was to not worry. And it didn't happen again. I've actually flown 3 times since then. I flew home from Vegas and then I flew to Florida and back. So I've had 3 examples where I flew without any issue. But all I remember is that panic attack and that fear that it installed or instilled in my body. That fear that was so prevalent that I was willing to go 39 hours out of my way to avoid it. And this is the funny part. I was laughing at myself this morning and I'm thinking to myself, why was this so difficult last night? Why did I have such a hard time with this? And the reason is fear is so much louder than our inner voice. And I think of it this way: when my intuition speaks, she is calm and logical. When my fear speaks, she is chaotic and unsure. This is how I know the difference between my wisdom and my ego or my fear. And I was so excited. I was so excited. I got out of bed and just went right to my computer and started writing an article. And this is what happens to me lately. I always thought I would be using this empirical, historical data to write, and I did that for a time, but now it's like real time stuff, and it's really informing my work and it's shaping what I'm doing, and it's really quite exciting because this is that trail that I'm blazing. This is that life of style. It is my intuition has gotten strong enough, and my spirit guides encourage me to strengthen my intuition by doing my own oracle readings. And I try to stay away from too many readings because I want to just trust the universe that what's coming is coming. What's meant for me will find me. My only job is to be as clear and open as possible. That means dealing with my issues, especially fears. And this one I was not aware of. I didn't realize it was still there. I think I referred to it in the writing as a demon wandering around who was living rent free in my psyche. And I didn't know she was there until the opportunity or the situation arose that activated her. So everything I do to mitigate my fear feeds my fear was all I could think of. And I'm like, holy shit. That's what I was doing last night. When I struggle, I'm fighting myself. I'm fighting my wisdom because my fear wants a voice. And when I'm frustrated and upset, my fear is trying to vie for the position of leadership in my body. And it's funny how simple it is when we can look at it clearly. It's right there. I've learned that when I fight with myself or struggle with a decision, it's a clear indicator that I'm listening to my fear and not my intuition. I realize that fear needs to fight to stay in my purview. It needs to get my attention aggressively. It needs to fight my wisdom, while my intuition quietly waits for me to remember she's there. And all I need to do is quiet down and listen. And I've learned my process now. Nighttime is when I contemplate and I argue. And in the morning, after I've had the time to sleep, is when my intuition I can hear her. And I think this is something that, I've been learning about this for a while now, over this journey that I've been on for the last year and a half, since my ex husband moved out of my house and I was able to really start to heal. Is that, we have many voices in our body. We have many indicators. Our body is always talking to us, always. So even though the feeling in my body wasn't stress and anxiety like I expected it to be, that heat that rose in my body and wouldn't leave was an indicator that I needed to deal with something. So stress is a warning signal from your body when your intuition cannot be heard. Stress is your body picking up your inner voice's wisdom and exclaiming it physically. So you are warned by a physical feeling. So stress informs us. There's not just stress though. Are these other things. Anxiety is another one, of course. Depression is another one. Anything that kind of takes up residence inside our energy is there for a reason. It's not there by accident. So when we avoid and ignore it, which we often do, I did for many, many, many years. I mean, in a relationship with a man who is was emotionally vacant, I sacrificed my ability to learn because I was so tolerant of my situation. And this is something that empathetic people deal with. And this isn't a show about empaths, but I am an empathetic person. So I want to include this element because I worked so hard, and this is fear. This is the job of fear. I worked so hard to not deal with myself or to protect my fears. The fears that I avoided, the fears that I avoided by staying in the situation that I was in were common. I think they were, I don't want to be alone in my late 50s. I'm not young anymore. How can I take care of myself financially? Is this the best I can do? Is this relationship all that really is this the best I can do? Am I going to be alone the rest of my life? These fears, they are our ego's way of keeping us in check. They're keeping us limited in what we're able to do. So if you're going to live a life of style, you cannot allow your ego or your fear to rule you. And this is something I was very aware of. But during my marriage, I was completely controlled by my fear. All the fears I just mentioned and many more. Fear of knowing who I was when I had no idea. I allowed my tolerance or my empathy to become tolerance. And tolerance is, it's hard to tell. There's a fine line between empathy and tolerance. I think that maybe that's what I'm learning, because empathy is our ability to see the frailties in others and to empathize or have compassion for them because of that. And oftentimes we excuse bad behavior because we know that the root of that behavior is out of the control of the person behaving that way because of their unawareness of it. And that unawareness, that lack of self-awareness is what enlightenment is all it takes us away from it. It gets us out of the darkness of not knowing or seeing ourselves into the illumination or the light of who we are and allows us a path that it is now lit up. It is illuminated so we can see where we're going and we can look back and see where we've been. So, that's what self-awareness is. It illuminates who we are, and then we can identify the behaviors that satisfy or protect the insecurities in our bodies. So, my insecurities were all the ones I just mentioned, and I was afraid of living a life of style. I didn't know what that meant. Even though before this relationship, I was really pretty good at moving on and really going anywhere I felt like. But in this later, at this later age, I didn't feel that wanderlust anymore. I didn't feel that innate kind of powerful ability to just go and change when I needed to change. So of course, I want to foster that. So I can't allow fear to control me. So my body very effectively led me through that whole thing. And if I weren't paying attention, who knows what conclusion I would have come to. But I guarantee you I would not have flown. And I maybe wouldn't even have taken the train, and I would have just not gone altogether and allowed my fear to restrict my movement in this world. So, one of the things that I wish to manifest in my life going forward is freedom. Freedom of my schedule, of my commitments, freedom financially, freedom of my creative endeavors, freedom of my relationships. So, meaning I move around this world at will because I have the money to do it. I have the relationships that serve me because my ego is no longer in charge of that department. I can work when I feel like it. I can rest when I feel like it. I can play when I feel like it. So if I'm ruled by a fear, even one that appears innocent because it came from a legitimate experience, I'm now restricted from moving around this world. And I can't have that. So my choice is to allay or go around this boulder, this barrier that I put in front of myself. I placed it there. No one else did. And by the way, it has no density. I gave it density. I created this boulder that is immovable. I can't move it. I'm not strong enough. I went through that issue. I can't do it. I got to go around it. And we tell ourselves that every day, don't we? I can't leave because I can't change because I can't move because this happened to me or that happened to me, and I have all of these insecurities and these fears, and it's not my fault. And of course, when this gets exacerbated, it spirals into desperation, which causes us to abuse ourselves in other ways. We overindulge in things that aren't good for us, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually. And we give up because we don't feel like it's up to us. So, I have this legitimate memory of this incredibly disruptive event on an airplane. And it was telling me, my ego or this memory was informing me of what I need to do. Oh, girl, I got you. Just don't go on the train. Don't go on the plane. Go on a train. You can do that. Sure, it's a full day longer and a half longer, but you got it. And I felt pretty dang good about myself all day yesterday. I got this covered. Until my body said, "Are you sure? Do you?" It's so funny to think about when you're looking at it. Oh my God. It's not funny when you're going through it. It's horrendous. I was so upset last night. I cried myself to sleep because I knew I was fighting something within me. I was fighting myself. This was a battle between my peaceful, still intuition and my loud, chaotic, screaming ego. So you can see how most or all times we give in to the screaming, chaotic voice because our intuition doesn't scream. She is our inner voice, and she is, I've said this many times, if we're not careful, she gets buried under our emotional debris, or he. She is, let's just say it's a term to cover all genders. She gets buried under all of our emotional debris, and you can't hear her. She's always speaking, always, every minute of every day, informing us on what's good for us, what's bad for us, what we should contemplate, what we should leave, what direction we should go, what we should invest in ourselves. It's there. It's all there. It's like having a life coach built in. It's a intuitive navigation system. It's all right there. But we can't hear her because the white noise in our lives is so powerful. And the noise in our brains is so powerful. And our fears and insecurities are so powerful. So we spend our lives avoiding what we fear. And look at the result of that. I mean, I'm a living, breathing example. I stayed with a man for almost 25 years. Now, not to be too hard on myself, I didn't, this man did a pretty good job of hiding himself from me. But my inner wisdom was there the whole time speaking to me. I just couldn't hear her. I was too invested in making this relationship work because I believed that was what strength was. That strength is resilience and perseverance. And if I can get through it, it must be right? It must be good. If I can tolerate it, then it's tolerable. But what I didn't understand was my empathy or my desire or my built-in uh, protective mechanisms against the insecurities in my body allowed me to tolerate until I was living an intolerable life. And this is something I would have had some idea of if I had been aware of this. Aware, that word aware, self awareness. We live in the dark when we're not self aware. We don't know ourselves. We don't understand why we do what we do. We just reflexively do what we do out of some whatever mechanism we built in ourselves to protect ourselves from what we fear. So I feared being abandoned as one of the fears. So I wasn't going to leave this relationship. I could fix it. And this man was loyal, he was affectionate. So he gave me those two things, which were the crumbs I fed on every day to keep me there. Even though if I were awake, I would have seen the desperate cavern in his heart and his inability to deal with anything remotely emotional, which I should have seen that. I'm not beating myself up about it. I was who I was. That was a version of myself who was unaware. She was unable to see this. So why would I blame her? It's like blaming a baby for not knowing geometry. Hey baby, what's your problem? Figure out that get up that chalkboard and figure that out. What's your problem? What are you, dumb? No. No, 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 no. I love her. She is a cherished part of the cycle of my being. She is an iteration of who I was at that time. This is evolution. She was a less evolved version of me. I am a more evolved version of her, and I am sure I have more evolved versions of me yet to come. That's why we're here. Not to beat ourselves up for not knowing we didn't know what we didn't know. And we didn't know it. So beating ourselves up about that is senseless. It doesn't make any sense because we are blaming ourselves for basically what was out of our control. And of course, we use that blame as a crutch or a as another way to stay stuck. We do that too. So, there's another one of those mechanisms at work there. But when you start to recognize these protective mechanisms that we install during different times in our lives, we can start to dismantle them. And we can see clearly with this clarity that our intuition gives us why they're there, why your life went the way it went because of them, and how to get rid of them, which is basically the emotional baggage that I've talked about many, many times, how we need to purge that out of our bodies. This is what I'm talking about. It's not just the emotions or the memories or the pain that we hold on to. We create mechanisms in our energy to protect ourselves from them. So they get buried in our bodies and they become part of our navigation. Actually, they become our navigation system. They completely override our natural God given guidance. So I love that I'm getting these real-time examples to share. And I believe this is what I'm meant to do right now is give a blow by blow of it sounds so weird. But for me, I'm in uncharted territory and this is where I'm meant to go. I've never heard anybody speak this way. I've never read this before. And it all makes so much sense because it really is so simple. We forget that the simplest explanation is often the right one. But we're so good at convoluting and muddying up what we believe and feel and think because if it's not difficult, it can't be right. If it's not complex, then I'm not smart enough to figure it out. If it's that simple, how did I figure it out? I don't think we trust that we are these advanced beings. We may be deadened to a lot of our wisdom because we're not yet evolved enough to manage it or handle it or assimilate it because that's how it works. Our wisdom is awakened in our bodies by our evolution, by our elevation, by our ability to evolve out of our darkness into our light. And again, darkness is not seeing ourselves. Light is, oh, I see now. It's not some big ethereal concept that can only be reached by people who have lived 5 million lifetimes and live on a mountaintop and don't speak a word. It's not just the avatars that have access to this. Jesus and Sadhguru and Eckhart Tolle and Mark Singer and the billions of others or millions or maybe thousands that are on earth right now helping us get there. When we invest ourselves in things that protect us, we are abdicating our power to live a life of fantasy, of miracles, of synchronistic wonder. Not to mention, we're no longer inviting karmic situations into our lives. I'll never deal with another man like my ex husband. I'm not energetically tuned into that frequency anymore. My frequency is higher. So, he can't find me. That man, not him particularly, but that man or that person on that vibration cannot see me. I'm invisible to him. You know, I say that without really understanding what I'm saying a lot of the times. And every time I say it, I understand a little bit more. I'm not a technical expert here, and I don't ever claim to be that. I am telling you my story as best as I can articulate with my limited vocabulary and my to the best of my ability. But this is the truth. And the truth lies in all of us. But the truth is peaceful and still and confident. It has nothing to prove, and it patiently waits for you to uncover it. It doesn't scream in your face, waving its arms, needing to be acknowledged. That's our fear. So yeah, I'm kind of learning this on the fly, but I love this I love just getting on this microphone and just going at it. I mean, it's an amazing thing to be able to just get a free flowing idea and let it see where it takes you. It's just brilliant, and I'm just so grateful for this platform. Yeah, it doesn't matter if anybody's listening right now. It really doesn't. I'm not doing it to be heard as much as I'm doing it as a way to just to really fully form myself um my perceptions of life in this world and of a human being guided by a soul. I use awkward language when I write about what I do. I say, I write about or speak about a soul with a human. It's like, well, you mean a soul inside a human? It's like, no, 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 it's not what I mean. It's a soul with a human. it's it's that simple. It's it's like carrying around an accessory. Why do you carry that? What's it for? What does it do? Is it useful? Are you using it effectively? Like a cell phone or a car. It's the human being that I am. This vessel, this vehicle, is something that I'm learning to operate intuitively. I'm learning to dismantle the old system, or it's being dismantled for me energetically mostly. And this is the internal combustion engine I was talking about versus the alien tech, which is my new energy. And it's funny because another thing I said to myself this morning when I was trying to convince myself that I could fly is, Gina, you're a friggin' alien. I'm from another planet, another star system. I'm here on a mission. I'm gathering data. I'm assimilating my experiences. I'm creating a document. I'm on a mission. I have a journey here. It's not just this human being reacting to life. I'm like, wait, I am this alien energy visiting this planet and body for a relatively short time in the scope of my eternal existence. What on earth do I have to fear? What on earth do I have to fear? And I mean that literally for the first time I think I've ever said it. What on earth do I need to fear? Seriously? So when I think of myself as this alien being, this light person, this being of light that came into this dense plane to adopt this body and have this experience, how could I fear anything? It doesn't make any sense. So I just keep laughing at myself because it's so silly when you look at it from that perspective. It's like, my God. I'm not even afraid of crashing and dying on an airplane because and I've always felt this way. When it's my time to go, I'm going. That's when my soul decides to leave. I don't fear that at all. What I fear is being really uncomfortable. I mean, that's really all it is. So I can't take the train because then I am serving the demon who is in charge of my fear of flying. I'm just feeding her so she gets fat and happy and never leaves. No, I can't do that. And I'm probably going to have a rough time between now and then. allaying this fear, allowing this process of exercising this demon until I get on that plane and I sit in that seat, and if I have a panic attack, I have a panic attack. I'll get through it. If I'm uncomfortable because I don't really love to fly, I'll be fine. I'll get through it. I just have to remember that. And that demon gets skinny because I'm no longer feeding her. And then she gives up and leaves, or she dies and her skeleton gets eaten by my stomach acid. I don't know. Sorry for that, that visual. Oh my god. This is so much fun. This is so much fun. It's fun. It's fucking hard sometimes, but it is so much fun when you really can come on the other side of it and see what you're doing and be honest about it and call it out and say, I have another lesson to learn here. No, that doesn't make me mad. I'm here to learn. This is another bag that's stuck in my psyche that needs to be pulled out and thrown away. A bag of rocks that I put there. So it's just funny to look back on it and think of how silly it is. And I know it's not silly in the moment, and I'm not telling anyone that they're silly for having fears. It's not that at all. But when you get to this place where you can see yourself clearly and you understand the mechanisms that you installed in your body, in your energy, in your brain to protect you from what you fear, it's quite funny to watch yourself flail around. Oh my God. It's so funny. I'm so bad. All I have to remember is that I am an alien being. I am not a human being. That is a temporary state of being here. It is not who I am. So if I allow that fear to control me, then I'm allowing my human body and its limited ability to manage anything other than what's right in front of its nose. I'm allowing that internal combustion engine to drive this body. And thankfully, that engine doesn't exist anymore. And I believe this is why I'm able to so quickly get to the other end of this, and that I don't get caught in that rabbit hole too quickly. Because, like I said before, I have like this Teflon interior now where anxiety and stress doesn't stay. It can't. It's like this process is so clear now. It's so well developed. It is stronger and more enhanced in its alien tech. So it outperforms any old energetic mechanisms in my body. And there are obviously some still there because this is one that came up. And there may be many more. I don't know. It's not up to me to know because then the jig would be up and what the hell would I need to do here? I'm here to learn these lessons, and my soul doesn't want to do them all at once. She wants a process. She wants to have an experience. So it's not up to me. So if I put things where they belong and I allow my brain to be a tool of my soul, then I don't suffer. And I'm probably going to suffer a little bit because I'm sure this energy is not going to leave me immediately. Maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe I'll get on that plane and never think of it again. But if not, I might have a little bit of a rough road ahead of me. But it's okay because I know where it's going. I understand why. So it takes away that fear of not knowing. And that fear is what stymies us, right? In this energy, fear is now an opportunity. It informed me of what I needed to know, of where I needed to look, of what I needed to deal with. And I'm able to do that now. It's really quite brilliant. But this is our intuitive system. This is our onboard navigation, and she's always speaking. She just doesn't scream. So it's up to us to clear that channel. So when you're turning the radio station and it's static, that's where we live, in that static. So you can't hear anything. But when we take the time to tune it to a station where we can clearly hear the voice speaking to us, we get informed. And again, it's not just our inner voice, it's our body. It wasn't anxiety that woke me up or that wouldn't allow me to sleep last night. It was heat. Because this wasn't it didn't warrant the anxiety that the airplane ride it had to be different because it was a different voice. It had to get my attention, and it did. It took a couple of hours, but it did. And I ended in tears because you have to go down that road. You have to deny your fear before you can embrace it. It's just how we're wired. We don't walk around like a teacher and go, okay, there's a fear, there's a fear, there's a fear here. You work on that one, you work on that one. It doesn't work that way. We have to stumble over it and scuff our knee before we can really stand up and go, "Oh, I see it now. I won't stumble over that again." Maybe I'm wrong, but that for me, that's how it worked. I can't conjure it without it causing this emotional reaction. And again, I believe just like in my episode about the emotional broom, the what's it called? Whatever I called it, the emotional baggage handler. Oh, how appropriate. That was an unintentional funny. But anyway, we have to purge these this energy out of our body, and I believe that's what I did last night. I cried it out. So I can't fear that. I look forward to the opportunity to cry because every time I cry, I'm releasing toxins from my body. I'm 60 years old, so I don't exercise like I used to, which is another way to release toxins. So your sweat. So maybe if you are really athletic and you're also emotionally aware, you won't suffer as much. But I don't know. That's a theory I probably won't be able to prove because I don't sweat that much. but but I don't know that I could have avoided the feeling of it. I don't think so because I think the feeling is important because it brings that energy up through your body, and then the exorcism takes place in the tears. Now, I don't know that the energy is completely gone. And I say that tentatively because I don't know if I will suffer between now and when I get on that plane. And if I do, that's what's meant to happen. It takes time. I don't know. Sometimes it's a purge and one and done. Sometimes it takes several purges. So I just love when I get to giggle at the end of these because I really don't know how they're going to end. But ultimately, what I've learned here is I have to face my fear. And yes, I did a good job of pretending it wasn't there because I'm just going to avoid this issue, quote unquote, and get on a train and yeah, and everybody's happy. But I'm now limited by something that does not have the acumen, the wisdom to limit me. So I can't allow that. So here I am. I am on the other side of this lesson, and I have yet to go on this trip. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm not claiming victory before victory is won, but I am going to do the best I can to not allow this fear to keep me from doing that. So that is what I wanted to share with you. And I appreciate you very much listening. This was an incredible, just like the last one, just this incredible revelation that happens in the morning. This is my time in the morning, is when I have these intuitive hits. And these are, again, my intuition, which is my higher self, or even my spirit team, or my guides, or the universe, or some alien who has a message for me getting through to me because that channel is clear. That is the universe working through us. And the universe is all of us. It's our higher selves, it's our future selves, it's the higher selves of other people in our lives. It is beings who have never incarnated in the human form. So, you know, my worldview is it's a little bit more expanded than it was before. It's not a worldview, it's a universal view. It is a just the life view, and it's brilliant because it keeps you from falling down rabbit holes. It allows you to float above the holes, and you can see where all the holes are, and you no longer fall in them, and then you don't have the need to get out of them. We are guided every moment of our lives by these beings who love and support us, by this universe that loves and support us, by this consciousness that we all share. All we have to figure out is how to get that channel tuned in, how to clear the static. So I hope that resonated for some of you. It was very cathartic for me. So thank you for listening. If you listened to the end, I appreciate you very much. And I look forward to speaking to you again.